congratulations on receiving your grant award from the Community Foundation of Broward. So now what? I'm Kathy Brown, Director of the Nonprofit Center for Excellence here at the Community Foundation of Broward. In this part 3 of our series of grant development, application, and management lessons, I'm here to help you figure out what's next. First and foremost, I hope you're actually take some time to pause and celebrate this success. Nonprofit work is endless, right? We never have raised all the money. We've never served all the clients or met all the needs. So if we don't pause to celebrate our successes as they happen, we position ourselves right at the head of the line for dissatisfaction and burnout. As a nonprofit professional myself and a frequent grant writer and manager over my career, I've often experienced quite a roller coaster of emotions when I've gotten notification of a grant award. Of course, initially I was thrilled, but after some celebration, reality would often set in and I would experience a little more reservation or concern, or if I'm honest, occasionally fear, because now I have to actually make this happen. So my goal in this brief video is to give you a few tips and suggestions to successfully implement and manage the grant that you've received. Let's start by setting you up for success. Obviously, you've received your award notification, in our case via email, but sometimes this comes in the form of a letter or even a call from other funders. Here's my first tip. And I know this may sound a little odd coming from me and my employment at the Community Foundation, but as a grant management professional, kind of putting that aside, my first tip to you is to immediately reach out and thank your funder for the award. A handwritten note to the board and the leadership of the organization, or a brief letter of gratitude works fine, as it can be then shared among staff members and board members. So in our case, we could share it with the Community Foundation board. It's a really strong first stewardship step. Some of you have emailed your gratitude, and that works too. But though it sounds a little old school, never underestimate the power of that written note. Now, we manage our grantee signatures through an online platform called DocuSign. You may have used this before, either in our grants program or in making a significant purchase, maybe a house or a car. I think I signed my last apartment lease through DocuSign. So my next tip is that once you've completed the DocuSign grant agreement, print it and save it. I know, here she goes with old school again. And even though it's electronic and seems wasteful, you want to be sure that you have a copy of what your organization has agreed to do available to you at any time. And if the pandemic and the hurricanes and the other disasters in the last few years have taught us nothing else, we know that having a plan B or a backup is important. Finally, once all the documents are signed and completed, and DocuSign should notify you of this, then you can watch for your payment. For the December 2022 awards here at the Community Foundation, these are being mailed with physical checks to the address on your application. So you want to check your actual physical mailbox. The exception might be if you provided ACH information to our team, then we may be able to do it that way, but your agreement will tell you what way it's happening. Moving forward, all of our grants will be distributed via electronic payment, via ACH transfer. Many funders have already moved to this process. So in any case, you'll want to review your grant application and your notification information really carefully so that you know exactly how and when your payments will be made. My next tip is to set you up for success by revisiting your application and the timeline that you outlined, and then build that into a more complete plan. Build the timeline with milestones, including due dates, and other important pieces, accomplishments, activity dates, and so on. I like to build them backwards, starting at the end and then sort of building in time so that I've got time to do draft reports and get approvals and all of the things that are necessary within an organization. My favorite tool to do this is from my small nonprofit days is a simple Gantt chart. This is a simple list of tasks that can be accomplished over a period of time. You list any milestones or due dates, and you just chart them out over the course of a year. The beauty of a tool like this is that you can see visually when busy times are, and also keep other organizational events and timelines in play. For example, here at the Community Foundation, we have a couple of very large donor events, and that we have to build our other timelines around those events so we don't end up with trying to coordinate our grant review committees the same week as one of the events, for example. So it can definitely be both a time saver for you and a morale saver for your staff and your volunteers. Next, you want to create a plan to track your metrics, the measurement of change that you've proposed as part of the application. Common metrics might include things like the number of participants in a workshop, or the number of meals served, or maybe even the number of applications and ultimately the hiring of a new staff position. But you want to go beyond just these outputs or these initial activities to measure what the real outcomes or impacts of this funding has changed. These might take the form of observations. For example, you might observe families interacting more closely together after participating in a workshop, and that physical proximity might actually be an indicator of strengthening family bonds. You could also use a questionnaire. There are simple ones like the smile or frown, or even a few questions, being asked before someone starts an activity, or as they enter and then as they leave. And there are even free programs like SurveyMonkey that you can explore. Interviews and focus groups are additional ways to track not just the participation, but also what's different or what changes as a result. You can call a few of those who came to the workshop or who benefit from your activities to see how their experience has changed or been impacted. If you have a new staff person, maybe the interviews help you clarify more of the qualitative care that you're providing, for example. A small focus group can provide similar opportunities for input and true demonstration of change. Ultimately, you should be looking to identify what does success actually look like, and then making the plan that'll get you there, collecting information along the way to evaluate whether or not your nonprofit's progress is actually getting you closer to success. And finally, it's important to also communicate what you're discovering and to use those lessons to continually improve performance. All of this is referred to as outcomes measurement or performance management, or sometimes even simply as evaluation. Now, if you're just becoming familiar with this topic, I can recommend a powerful and easy to read book called Leap of Reason that explains how nonprofits and grant makers and even government agencies have both a responsibility to the individuals and to communities we all serve to be as effective as possible. The authors go on to stress that an environment of increasingly limited resources, those nonprofits who can demonstrate that they are truly making an impact will be the ones most likely to attract resources and talent, and therefore most sustainable. As Leap of Reason points out, measuring outcomes is not just about attracting resources to your nonprofit, because it really is also about your mission. Your nonprofit will only know that it's indeed helping individuals, solving problems in the communities, or protecting the environment, for example, if it's evaluating performance, identifying and communicating impact or important activities for any nonprofit, since donors understandably want to know that their donation is making a difference. And if you get stuck, a great place to start is going back to your application in the grant portal to see what you agreed to report. In addition to building your internal tools and tracking systems, you also want to build your marketing and PR plans. Start by sharing the news of your grant award and what it will accomplish. But keep in mind that that sounds a little different than how you plan to spend the funds. You may plan to spend the funds on seeds and gardening tools for a community garden, but the accomplishment that you'll want to focus on is more families learning about sustainable food and the reduction in food deserts as examples. So to share the news, you'll need to download our brand standards manual, which you can find on our website. This shares how you can use our logo in your work, how the Community Foundation of Broward should be notified about your events, what sort of media we prefer, and those types of things. Keep in mind that for any print promotion, all materials that utilize our name and logo have to be submitted for approval at least 5 days prior to your deadline. So be sure you build that into your timeline. Now, I could promise you, our marketing team can make a pretty quick turnaround and is really good to work with for these reviews, but you definitely want to build in that 5-day minimum window just to be sure that everything is approved before you're printing and sharing it out. Now, pre-approval is not required for social media posts, but we do ask that you please tag the Community Foundation of Broward on all your social promotions. And details for the correct tagging information can be found in the brand standards manual. You learn you want to be sure to plan to let people know not only that you got funding, but also keep us all informed on how it's going. This comes in the forms of a communications plan, and you can add those points into your Gantt chart. When we're going to send out our social media plans, when we're going to print a brochure, if that's the thing, whatever your plans are for putting information out, that's the way to do it. And my tip here is to plan now for the end of the grant, because you want to be familiar with the final reporting requirements for the tracking and so on, so that you can track your progress and expenses the most efficiently and effectively as you can, so that trying to pull it all together at the end isn't a cumbersome activity. Now, one of the things that the Brand Standards Manual will help you do is to plan how you collect stories and photos. Here are two photos I took at recent activities. As you can see, both are group shots of a class activity, but the one on the right is far more engaging because the participants are looking at the camera. The Brand Standards Manual has some additional tips for engaging photos, and we periodically will host grantee gatherings to learn more about managing and marketing your grant work. Another key point to set you up for success is to realize that sometimes things just don't go as planned. We know, don't panic. Just let us know what the problem is and what you'd like to do to address it. You can contact us most effectively via email at grants@cfbroward.org. I actually once had a significant grant project that, among other things, was building a mentorship program for some adult students that we were working with. And my biggest fear was that we would not have enough of these mentors for all these adult students to go around. Now, long story short, we ended up with plenty of mentors, but not enough interested in being mentored in the way that we'd planned. So I contacted the funder with the situation and proposed, instead of a formal mentorship program, that we shift into more of a job shadowing and career connections model, which was more in line with what the adult students actually wanted. So we made a few edits to the budget, and I submitted the proposed update, which was included in the funder's file on our grant. Then we had to go back to adjust our own metrics, our outputs and outcomes. I didn't delete what I had proposed, but I added the new planning so that the funder understood that while the number of students receiving one-on-one mentorship was only going to be a fraction of what I'd proposed, the number of job shadow experiences and career guidance sessions and discussions kind of replaced those interactions. So success looked different than we imagined, but it was still success. At the end of your grant cycle, which in the case of our small grants program is a 12-month timeline, but in the case of our focus area and big think grants could be longer, you'll be asked to provide a summary report letting us know how what you proposed worked out. Now, this is when it's good to have your timeline, your evaluation metrics, and your original application all together so that you can review what you proposed, what happened, and what changed as a result. Like the application, the goal of this report is not to create a dissertation or to write the next American novel. It is simply literally to let us know how the project or proposal worked out. Don't let this be the only time we hear from you, though, and certainly not the only time we hear when there is an unexpected challenge or problem. We'll be looking for information on how the project progressed, including success stories and examples, some of the data points that you've tracked and what you learned from them, some of the demographic information that you're tracking, and the end result or changes from what happened from getting those funds. We'll also ask for a review of the budget, how the grant funding was spent. The format for sharing this may change subsequent to the recording of this video, so be sure to review your grant agreement and the final report form in our grants portal to confirm exactly what information is needed and how it should be reported. I sure hope this micro lesson in grant management has been helpful. We're here to help you succeed because with your success, we know it improves Broward. If you've got questions along your grant journey, please know that you can reach out to any of us on the Community Impact team. We look forward to hearing about your success. Thanks.